to provided some additional square footage that they desperately need for some of their special education needs.
Yep. Super, thank you. So again, that just gave you a real quick overview of the plan, and we'll try to go a little deeper into that. What I would like to do, though, is introduce our partners in this aspect, in the aspect of the project. EEI, Energy Efficiency Investments, and Mike Davies is here, and they're out of Merrimack, New Hampshire. EEI has contracted and hired Banwell. And Jeremiah Gould from Banwell is here, and he's in the room as well. Folks might remember Jeremiah from last year. He was part of the team that worked with the project. So here's a warrant article that will be placed for the ballot in March. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm sure you all can read pretty easily. I think what's important here is that the estimated tax rate, again, for year one, and we're going to talk about year two in a little bit later on, but we're looking to raise this money. We have the ability to accept gifts and other sort of ways of paying for this and paying down this debt if the board takes the bond. And again, this is the first year interest that will be paid off that we are raising and appropriating that affects that 18 cents. The project scope, and again, we have our experts here, so I'll let them build on this, but these are really some of the big pieces. Again, these are things that have been in place since the original Brown report in '96. The site safety, there's the ability, we're going to talk about the School Street and discontinuation of the School Street, and how School Street really runs right through that parking lot and right to the back end where the garage is back there. I don't think a lot of people know that. Remove of a 20-year-old module. Increased security, and you heard that in the video. We're going to show you that in the vestibule. Undersized instructional support spaces. Folks that have been listening to us for the last few years have heard we've been under stairwells and small closets, just in places that we necessarily shouldn't be utilizing. Better circulation, I think that's really important. ADA accessibility, usable platform space. So we have a stage down there that's inaccessible for ADA compatibility, and so it will allow us to utilize that space. It's also a space that has 3 programs in it right now. Renewable heating, and I'll let Jeremiah or Mike talk a little bit about the biomass system. Ventilation systems, again, folks that have been in that building have heard us talk for the last couple of years. There are small air handlers in the basement. The majority of that building, the 1928 building, has chains. You pull the chain, the vent opens on the roof, we open a window, and that's how we circulate air. And then additional educational opportunities. I would ask if Mike or Jeremiah, if you could talk a little more about the modern and renewable heating system.
Mike Davies with EEI. The renewable heating system that we're proposing would be a dry chip boiler system. It would use semi-dry wood chips manufactured in New Hampshire. So that the building currently uses oil. And the gym building below also uses oil. So we would propose to install a dry wood chip boiler that would heat both buildings. This would save more than 35,000 gallons of oil to renewable heat and offer substantial energy savings. The state of New Hampshire, to incentivize large oil users such as school districts to consider renewable fuel, will provide RECs. So every time you burn wood heat, they're actually going to subsidize that with a payment each year, which we think will be $12,000 a year in renewable payments. And we are eligible for a one-time grant of more than $200,000 toward the infrastructure cost. We'll be applying for that in late January. So that's the renewable heating plan.
Thank you. So the why now, and I think this is, I think a lot of people are asking this question, but the why now really, again, goes back to '96. We've known about this for decades. We feel the structural, the building itself is solid, and I think this is important. So So for $10 million, for $10.6 million, we're looking at, we consider a 50-year fix to this building. And so it's taking a topic that's been on for over 20 years off the table and done with for the next 50 years. And giving our kids a safe environment in which you continue to be educated in and educate K through 12 in our town. Really important is this interest rate. And so the interest rate you have was given to us again. If we were to pass this in March, we would apply to the bond bank in July and June. Rates would come out in end of June. And again, those rates may be different. But right now, that rate went off in January, just a few days ago, January 6th, at 1.3% interest. That's the lowest percent interest rate that we've had. Last year, we were dealing with 3.5 to 3.25. And so I think that's something really to think about, that this might be an opportunity for us to really have substantial savings to this community if we can pass this bond. Cost effective to the previous plan, we heard the $26 million was too much, we heard the $24 million was too much, we heard you didn't want the fields, you didn't want us to look at necessarily the high school, didn't like the comprehensive plan. I think the CIP committee has done a nice job really refocusing, listening to this community, refocusing its energy back on the elementary school and having that be the primary focus. And that comprehensive plan for $10.6 million, again, addresses the needs that we've been talking about since 1996 and addresses them for the next 50 years. And I think lastly, it's our responsibility. And when I say it's our responsibility, it's my responsibility as superintendent, it's this board's responsibility, and it really is our community's responsibility. None of us want to be in a situation where we have to say, oh, we knew about it, but we're sorry that happened. And so I do think there is a piece of this that it's our responsibility that we all have ownership of. In this instance here, I'm really speaking of myself and the board. So I'm going to show you a few pictures, and I'm going to go over a few things, but I'll ask Jeremiah and Mike to jump in. So here is looking at the school from right now, the current playground. School Street is down here. So this is all the current building. This is the elevator shaft. This would now be the new entrance, and this is the addition here. And so again, just a different perspective. Again, this piece is here. It's the vestibule. This is now the new entrance and the new addition. And so again, I'll ask Jeremiah to jump in on the next one for me, but really this is the building itself, the 1928 building with the 65 addition. This is the proposed addition right here. What's different really with this, other than new mechanical and things in this nature, we're going to put our library down in the cafeteria, taking the kitchen out that's here, using the large windows and large space here to put our media center down this way. Right here, this is one of the fire code issues that we're currently been flagged for, and it's not having this hallway here and securing some of these stairwells.
We're opening this up so that the stairs can be accessible now through the corridor. Again, as Russ pointed out, this is the major change on the lower level, is converting the cafeteria kitchen into the media center.
So main level, again, exists in 1928, 60 building, 66, 65. New vestibule here. And again, this was something that has been picked up in our Homeland Security report, not having a secure vestibule. What this does is allows access to someone. It allows access right to our main office. They can't get into the building here. They can exit the building, but they cannot get into the building without coming through the front office and having clearance coming through the front office. Administrative suite, again, front office, principal's office, nurse's office here, and Jeremiah spoke of. It's broken out, it has a couple different rooms and an exiting door.
Now, we felt it's important to have the administration area front and center for security reasons, to monitor who's coming and going. Whereas now, you have your administration dispersed throughout the building, and it's not necessarily the entrance. So this provides a secure place where the visitor can supervise.
Other pieces, and Jeremiah, you can see this a little better than I do, but this, I believe, is the cafeteria, new cafeteria space, and what now is our media center becomes a multi-purpose room, and this is that usable stage that we talked about. And so this now would allow for a lot of our pre-K, 1, 2, 3 grades to primarily potentially come in here and have phys ed class without having to go all the way down to the gym. So one of the biggest aspects of this plan is keeping all our programs under one roof. And we're going to see a little bit more of that on the second slide. Jeremiah, anything you want to add there? Again, so this is the top floor, original building, 28, 60s addition here, renovation of redoing these bathrooms a little bit. What we have here is art and music, some storage, an additional classroom. The stairwell, again, that was here is gone. Right? The big chimney that we've all heard several times been called a chimney is taken out. This now becomes another office space. The corridor flows a little easier. As you can see, we talked about that circulation, to be able to come up, kind of go through, elevator here, and then to be able to go back down. Anything, Jeremiah, want to add there?
Just to point out, this is a proposed music room, there aren't no here on this corner, and additional classroom here. So this would provide the capacity that we're going to lose, when the modular is removed, provide some additional expansion space. We're addressing upgrades to the, bathrooms to make them ADA accessible and addressing, life safety issues and ADA issues throughout. Special ed spaces, services spaces, so reconfigured, impact ours.
So the discontinuation of the road, I think this is, again, I think we all find something new as we continue to dig in here. This is School Street, so coming up School Street. Right now, this is our playground, and our kids have to come out, and our module kids have to come out of the door here, go across School Street, get into our playground for recess or for Zen class, or to go out here right now, first grade's here, but in the past it's been art and music to go to those programs. And again, kids have to come out and to go down the hill down here to go to phys ed class and music class currently. The proposal right now has making this a parking lot, and you can see a raised median, but striping here with paint, and then pushing our playground back into this area, and then you can see the blue outline of the addition. And that addition now infringes upon School Street. So School Street, again, goes all the way back here and is owned by the town. So we're gonna put a warrant together, and I'll show you that slide, which is a discontinuation, it'll be on the town ballot, a discontinuation of School Street. And what will happen is School Street now will end here. People, if they came up School Street, will still have the ability to go in and to circle back around, because this is a 24-foot, it's wide, so it's wide enough to put two-way traffic in and out and come back out. But what will happen is it won't allow them necessarily to go down and connect with the playground or continue back down into this area. So it's a much safer site. You'll see a little bit more. I'm going to show you. This will be the warrant that will appear in the town. It's Article 22. Again, I don't have to read things for you. There will be a registered mail letter that will be going out to all the abutters. So there are 6 or 7 abutters on School Street that will get this, letting them know that this doesn't necessarily affect their property, but the discontinuation of School Street will happen, and that'll happen at the top of School Street next to this property here, lot 21, 17 School Street. Again, this is a different look at it. It's a little shorter and fatter. I had to squish it in to get it in there, but this is the addition. It looks oversized in this picture, but again, I had to shrink to get it in there. So I think this is really the meat of the conversation tonight. Right now, we've proposed the 10.624 for 15 years. We have a 2% interest rate on the 2021. The budget, the tax rate would be 18 cents. $18 on a $100,000 home. It makes it pretty easy for you to calculate that based upon your home assessment. Second year is principal and interest, and right now that's based at 63 cents. And again, these are estimates, right? Because we haven't set the tax rate for next year. So these are estimates based upon this year's and right now current figures. $63 to $100,000 home. It decreases every other year to follow over the term of the bond, 15 years. Again, we talked about in January the 2021 bond rate's given at 1.32. We're not going to find a better percent. There's an opportunity for up to 30% savings for state aid on what's applicable. What we just got today, which I think was really exciting, it couldn't have been better timing, received a letter from Amy Clark from the Department of Education. So our building aid application was due to the state July 1st. It was a new process. We had that application in. It's probably about a 100-page application. We then had an on-site, and the state came out in October, and they did an on-site where they toured our facility. We were able to show them our facility. There were 12 projects throughout the state that were submitted this year for building it. Not knowing what Building 8 is going to look like, but we've been told it will be funded. We have to wait and see through the governor's budget, but there's no moratorium on it, so it's back in play. We have ranked third. So there are 2 schools above us, and then there is us, and then schools below us. So we have ranked third. There's a long list, and we'll be happy to put this up on our website, but there's a long list of, it goes through the scale on where we receive points and why we receive points. And one of the things I think that's really, it was a little concerning seeing this, they gave us, out of a possible 125, we had the third highest life safety points, meaning life safety issues in our building. There were 2 schools ahead of us, one had 180, one had 200, and we had 180 life safety points given to us by the Department of Education based upon their on-site visit to our school. And so the good news is, if the governor funds it, if it all gets approved, we could be potentially, again, up to 30% of this bond, of this 10 million, could be being paid for by the state. And that's a pretty substantial piece of savings that could be given to this community, again, if we can pass the bond. So find the facts. It's always, this is a brief presentation. I'm running out of a little bit of time, but where to find things. So our website, we're driving people to our website, sau85.org. There are videos on there, short little clips, stuff about biomass, energy efficient, the plant itself. There are long interviews from EEI, a full 45-minute interview presentation that was given. The interview from Yankee Chronicle is on there. That's about a 25-minute piece. You can go to our Facebook page. You can go to our Twitter account. We're planning on having a Zoom meeting, and we're going to be doing this on the 20th and the 17th. Those are our tentative dates right now, and we'll be making that public. You can find the links on our website, and we'll send out more information. So right now, that's where we are asking people to go. If there are questions or concerns, then please go there. You'll also find an email address there that allow you to email questions and concerns, and we'll get back to you on whatever those questions or concerns are. So at this point, I'm going to conclude my part of it and ask if there are any questions regarding the bond or the project itself that we can help you with. John?
John Augustine, Stagecoach Road. From the diagrams, it looked like there was space available in the lower right-hand side. So I'm wondering if you considered.
This picture, John?
No, the one that shows the basketball.
Yep.
So on the bottom right-hand side, looks like there's space that you could put a couple thousand square feet if you wanted to.
You talking about this?
Yes. Did you ever consider putting a little addition there and selling off the SAU building?
So John, I think what's
proceeds of the sale to finance some of this.
So I think what you can see, John, is in the proposal right here, and folks have been up to the site. This is where the hill starts, and so this drastically drops, right? And so to fill into this space, right? This isn't drawn to scale right here, but right here is where that large hill starts that the kids love to sled down. And so there's definitely some elevation issues in retaining walls and things that would need to be done.
Okay, so that may get out to existing. That looks like there's space to the right where it says proposed addition, proposed playground. Like the larger question is, did you ever consider moving the SAU personnel into this new structure and selling off the SAU building using the proceeds of the sale toward the cost of this?
Sure. So actually, John, we asked that question last year, and the SAU building was roughly $350,000, and to put in the square footage that we would need for the SAU personnel to move into any building, last year was estimated over $1 million. And so it wasn't cost efficient to sell the SAU something you paid for and you already own, to go add on to something and add to the cost and put that back to the taxpayer. Other question? Yes.
In back of the school, there's a lower playground and an upper playground. Are you eliminating the upper playground?
No, upper playground staying. Again, you can kind of see it here. Foursquare, there's some elements over here, like the kickball games and things. A lot of this is a pretty hilly up here. There is some flat area with a stadium in. It's a small little basketball court. Mm-hmm. So this is staying, but this is now all moving over here. nice flat paved surface for kids to be able to do kickball and foursquare and hopscotch and all those things.
Does that mean taking down that garage?
The garage at the end, we haven't determined, we use it heavily for storage right now. It wouldn't be, it's not in the way. Again, it's down in here. Go ahead.
On the bond, it looks like you have interest payable annually, or semi-annually, and principal annually.
No, so the first year only, we pay interest.
Right,
After that, we pay principal and interest.
right, I'm looking at the schedule that you gave us.
Yep.
It looks like twice a year interest and once a year principal.
No, it's just listed, it just shows you the interest rate there. So we pay the payment in the fiscal year total payment column. So you take the 815 in year 2 and add it to the 99.1, and that's where you get your 914.
Because you're showing August and February payments.
What are you talking about? Yeah. The dates, that's the, yes, correct.
So, interest twice a year, and principal once a year?
Yes.
Have you discussed with the bond bank possibly doing principal and interest twice a year? Because that would reduce the overall interest cost.
So the board right now hasn't entered into any negotiation with the bond bank. This has to be passed before the bank would have that conversation, but sure, those are conversations that we would have.
Because that would save us a considerable amount of money.
Again, this is the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, how they give their bonds, we may be, stuck to the way they give their bonds. We can certainly ask the question.
Definitely welcome the input. I appreciate it. It's a little ahead of where we are right now, but it's great that you brought that up. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you just give us your name and address, please?
Arlene Adams, 15 Central Street.
Thank you, Ellen.
And I worked at banks, so that's why I'm asking.
I'm glad to see you back because you've made some good comments. You've made some great comments in the past, so it was nice to see you back tonight. When we get to that point, it would be great to get more of your insights and suggestions, for sure.
Chris?
I heard a couple of things about.
Chris, just name and just for the
Chris
record.
Whitehouse, live over here with, I heard a couple of comments about, more like the phrasing, like, I said, well, we think the heating system will save us $12,000 a year. And so you said that he believes we get $200,000 as a credit for it. And then one of your slides says opportunity for up to 30% savings from state government. Those sound like maybes. They don't sound like positive. They just sound like maybes. You might save us $12. You might get $200,000. You might get 30% savings from state government. So I might win the lottery on Saturday.
You give us some of that money?
I'll give you $100,000.
Thank you.
By the way, and I'm old to, I'll buy tickets, so I probably won't win. Point is that there's a lot of maintenance here, and not a lot of guarantees. So, what's the odds of getting that 30% savings, and more importantly, that 30% savings? Could we get that 30% savings passed, and the governor signs it, and then we build the school, or we put a building in school in the hopes of it?
So I think to address some of that, Chris, I think we have to give estimates, right? So just like we're giving an estimate at 2%, the bond just went out at 1.32. So I can, the best I can do there is give you an estimate. I think when Mike and Jeremiah are giving their feedback regarding the grant was $200,000, and we're estimating, based upon other projects and work that they've done, and I'll let them speak for themselves, that that's potential savings that's coming, right? Things have to be built, but we're still pre-bond. The 30%, unfortunately, we will not know. The quickest we'll know on that, based upon the letter I received today, could be July.
Okay, so if you waited until next year and then passed that, then it would be guaranteed you that 30%.
Not necessarily, because we could lose our
There's
spot.
no guarantee for 30%.
Right,
What the?
right.
You-
And
You're telling us, it's like giving somebody hope and not giving, it just doesn't seem valid.
So there's one, the way the state allocates money doesn't always put the application in. We've been told that that's funded in the state budget. We ranked third out of 12. Last year, all three projects that were in the top three got full funding. We were part of those, the Lisbon School District got funding, the Somersworth School District, and Romney. All of them got that funding. So, based on that historical precedent, that's a very good sign. The $200,000 grant, that's subject to the Governor's Council approving it. Every year that we apply for that grant, we won it. We think this project will get Governor's Council approval, but I can't promise the voters that it will. So in those other towns, they voted to approve it, and then that funding, we do our best application, and we've gotten that funding each time. But things can happen in politics.
Have you applied and gotten that since COVID's been around?
Both of those are annual. So we did Lisbon, for Woodsville last year was the most recent application. We won that. This is the next application.
We don't know. There's a big shortfall.
Do other people have questions?
So,
If we don't get federal.
sorry, I can't hear you, Chris.
There's a big shortfall in the state budget right now. We're talking about layoffs, why versus state, okay? So, they're not gonna give us anything if they can't pay their bills, right? If we don't get federal funding to bail out basically the state for all of the shortfalls of revenue because of COVID, none of this is gonna happen as far as any money being cut. We don't know any of this is gonna be here, so. I was on that community advisory committee. We recommended wait. Okay, doesn't make them. So, I guess what I'm asking here is it doesn't seem like we have anything except for this 15-year bond. And 2%, say it's 2%, it could be lower, it could be higher probably. We don't know until we get watch on here. So it just seems like there's a whole lot of questions before we go borrowing $10.624 million. It seems like a lot of questions.
Other questions?
So hold on. So just a couple things, because I think Chris, you said, let's wait a year. So one of the things that keeps you getting brought up, wait a year. We've waited a number of years. I think we've really listened to the community, we've focused back in. But there's something that I think is important, that this year, if this gets passed, again, it's 18 cents. Next year, the safety service building comes off. So the safety service building comes off, and the highest hit of this bond goes on. And so if we waited a year, now we're putting the lowest year of this bond onto when something's coming off. And it's almost, I know it's not an equal 1-to-1, but people have said, hey, wait a year to the safety service. Let's not wait the year. Let's take the 18 cents. Let's offset the safety service. Well, let's offset the 63 cents with the retirement of the safety service bill. And you're right, there are a lot of unanswered, a lot of whys or I don't knows, but when you're in pre-bond construction and pre-bond process, these are some of the things you get. And we try to give you the best information, but I suppose there's a lot of whys, like you said, Chris, you could win the lottery and we could all be done with tomorrow. Sue?
Sue Gottman. I'm assuming that the $10,624,000 is not based on getting the 30% savings, and it's not based on the $200,000. That's the cost if none of those things happen. Is that correct?
I just want to confirm with the 200,000, Mike. I know it's not, the 30% is not in that's full price right now. So the 30% would come off of that 10.6 if we were qualified.
Okay, yeah, and there will be no difficulty in reducing the bond ahead of time.
There would not.
Thank you, which is what happened with safety service.
Correct. Thank you, sir. Other questions? Let me just see, John, make sure. I saw Ed. Do you? Scott.
My history of,
I'm sorry.
Ed?
from my history of going through these type of things, these questions are going to be the same questions that are not answered every year. The way the budgets are set up, they're asking us to secure questions that if we go again next year, it's still going to be the same questions. That's my understanding. Am I wrong on that?
Scott, and then I'll come back to John.
No, I just wanted to clarify something with this building aid. And I guess before I ask my question, because I'm seeing this for the first time, this ranking, if you will. And it's not an insignificant thing that the reason we're ranked 3 out of 12 is because of the life safety points. This is somebody from the state who's totally impartial, that's coming to our school, that does these evaluations all of the time. And the reason we're 3 out of 12 instead of 10 or 11 out of 12 appears to be the life safety points. Am I reading that correctly?
Right, we were third on life safety, third highest.
From a taxpayer standpoint, being third on the list is highly encouraging. As a resident, I'm mortified that we're third on the list because of life safety issues. And we have children and staff in that building, and different efforts to detract from the reality of what the state is considering us for. Yes, you're absolutely right.
And I think it's important to mention that. I know folks have maybe a little confusion when John Galloway was here and he said there's no life safety. What John said was there's nothing in the building that's going to close the building. Jeremiah had an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with Mike, John Galloway, and also Tom Humphrey, the state fire marshal. And in that meeting, they identified on December 14th a long list of issues that were concerns from the fire marshal and our fire chief that are on our website that you can find that really need to be addressed. And in this plan, it addresses those concerns. And so I think there's a little confusion. Yes, we have life safety issues. Is there anything specific right now that's going to close that building tomorrow? No. Are there things in that building that need to be improved because some of those things were put in place in 1928? Yes, and those things have been agreed upon by the state fire marshal and our fire chief. And so, John, I think I'm going back to you.
My other...
Oh, sorry, Scott.
I'm sorry, part B to my question. If the bond doesn't pass, did I hear something earlier that we lose our place in line or we set back from that ranking?
So my understanding, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we pass on the money, they would most likely put somebody else that was behind us in front of us.
So yes.
Okay, so it's not prudent to wait from that perspective.
Right, so I shouldn't say passing the money. If we didn't pass our bond,
Right.
and then we don't go and say, hey, we're getting a bond and we're applying for the building aid, and we like to receive it, they would give it to somebody else. Now, John, I go to you, sorry.
Donald, if we could just hear more about the wood chips. For example, where will that, I think it's a big furnace, where will the furnace sit? So then in terms of noise, smoke, smell, and just general impact to the community.
Yep, it'll be a small outbuilding behind the Sherburne Gym, and we'll have piping that will connect both boilers underground. And this is a system that is very clean burning. So it's similar to a wood pellet. It's a dry product that'll have a storage saddle behind it, and there'll be a wood chip boiler in a small building. We just built one this year at Hampton Elementary School, and so it's basically a small wood structure that'll house the boiler. It will have backup propane, so if the wood goes down, the plant will be capable of burning dry wood chips, pellets, or propane. Yes, because that boiler also so it only runs during the winter months.
Is there anything in the proposal, solar energy or any type of electrical renewable?
There is not. There's not solar at this time. Solar could be done in future years on this roof, but it wasn't included as part. We talked about at the committee level about trying to perhaps bring more items into the project, such as solar, such as the boiler plant at the high school. We really focused on the biggest, greatest need for this district is the elementary school, and so we kind of pared it down to try and get the most reasonable project cost.
just knowing that we're getting a little short of time, any other questions on the bond itself?
I have a question about this one here, just curiosity. What would, if you put a oil system in here, how much less would be on what would be, I mean, you said it's $12,000 a year take, right?
Now, there's a $12,000 a year, there's a $12,000 a year rec that the state will pay you. And one of the questions you had said, well, why? You know, I said about 12,000 or approximately, I forget what the word was. So it's based on how cold the winter is, how the grant is directly, that annual $12,000 credit is directly proportional to how much wood you use. So just that's
It's 12 grand.
yeah, 12 grand is based on an average winter, and that's a what's called a thermal credit that tries to levelize, help customers use wood heat. In general, the energy savings from this entire project is $35,000 a year, and then there's a $12,000 on top of that. So I don't, off the top, I did this analysis at a previous meeting, and I don't have those numbers handy. I can look it up and get back to you.
The projected
I
return,
think it was a net, so I'm speaking from memory, I think it was a net $100,000 extra to do this once you take away the grant. And so,
Right.
and the payback was approximately 5 years. In a previous presentation and on the website, I did this exact, it was essentially a 5-year payback on the delta between propane.
That is on our website, under
Yeah.
videos, there's a thing, biomass, and please go on there, those are the numbers, Mike.
And just one of the things, and I don't know if anyone's here from the Energy Committee, but the Energy Committee wanted a detailed review of this. So in the next week or two, we'll do a deep dive with the Energy Committee on Zoom to really go through these numbers on that system.
Great, we are going to end the budget hearing at this time and move right into the budget hearing. You get to listen to me a little more. Sorry. So John, can you go, want to do it? The first one. You just go start from the beginning. And then you clicking all the way through them. All right. So the other part of tonight's meeting is obviously the budget hearing. The administration, along with the faculty and directors, have been working on the budget since October. This has obviously been a very interesting year in itself, but a more interesting year, I think, to develop a budget in. Again, we're developing a budget in October that goes into effect the following July. And so, slap dab in the middle of COVID here, we're building this budget. And it really took a lot of effort and energy by the administration and our directors and our teachers to really put some thought into this. And obviously, as things have progressed with COVID and we've come a little further along with better understanding about COVID and hopefully what things are going to look like into the future, not completely knowing, but thinking we know, we've been able to really work our budget down to we think for this year is very reasonable. And so I'm going to go through a few the statistics of the district itself. I'll try not to bog down and get bogged down too quickly, and then we'll get into the warrant article itself and the budget. And so again, our mission here, and I'm not going to read for anybody, our enrollment. I think this is important to recognize here. COVID last year 432, this year 400. We had 11 new homeschool students and 18 remote students. And so at the beginning of the year, you were asked if you would like to come back to school, would you like to go full remote? And the other third option was you could obviously homeschool. So if you take these, 29 kids, add them back up here to the 400, we're consistently, again, holding our enrollment. And I think that's important. And yes, that enrollment number does have tuition kids in it, both in this and in this. Because that number, that always gets asked. Some budget factors, I think, that really added to the increase this year. It is the third year of the teacher contract that was approved a few years ago. We had an increase in dental insurance. we had an increase in the retirement system. And Kelly, can you just fill a little bit about the retirement system?
Sure. We have a significant increase this year.
You go really loud.
Really loud.
Challenge yourself with volume.
Okay. All right, increase for teachers has gone from 17.8% to 21.2%, and the employees went from 11.2 to 14.6. The New Hampshire retirement system is facing an unfunded liability of $6 billion. There's a lot of factors involved in that, such as the way they were investing their money and not getting the return, the financial crisis of 2008. So they change the rates every year, and the factors are, one is poor declinement in payroll. The teachers there's not as many teachers contributing now, and they haven't been since 2016. And so we get the brunt of the increase. And also the state was paying 35% or more up until 2011, and they stopped paying during that time. So the burden is solely for the school districts.
And we're going to talk about, I'll talk about that a little more, but then again, and not picking on any legislators in the room, but the legislation, unfortunately, has pushed a lot of this cost, or pushed all this cost now back to the local town and district. And so with that, those factors that Kelly just mentioned, that increase right there, the $244,000 is really has been felt in this budget and is pushing this budget. We've had an increase in FICA, obviously, there. That goes to be said. Special education costs are up about $40,000 this year. Again, the last couple of years, we've been able to either cut from this. But just looking at our population, we feel like we want to add a little more money in there. Out-of-district transportation that goes along there, and buildings and grounds, there's about $15,000 in there based upon some of the COVID expenses we think we're going to have to endure next year. Some decrease factors, and again, I'm going to talk a little bit about our budget in a minute, but we're going to rely on, if needed, potentially using money if needed because of COVID coming out of our capital reserve account. And right now, there's $40,000 in there. You'll see another warrant article to add a little money from fund balance this year if we had it. The GMR, so your guaranteed maximum rate of insurance, actually came in higher this year, an increase, but because of our contract, and I'm going to let Kelly speak of that, we were actually able to save some money.
And it's actually when we negotiated with our teachers, we came to the agreement of a buyout. So if they choose or opt out of insurance, they will get a buyout equivalent to the 20% they would have paid in. And we also extended that to the support staff. They will get a 14% buyout. And we've seen over the past 2 years an increase of people opting for the buyout, which is actually giving us a reduction in health insurance, even though we had an increase in premiums.
And so this year, with the buyout, we saved,
We saved $340,000.
well, $340,000 that we saved in health insurance with the buyout. So we spent $75 to save $345. Overall, we've asked our principals to cut from their budgets going, look at equipment, supplies, other things in their budget, $20,000 for each one of them. Again, not really knowing what COVID's going to look like. We're thinking about some of our field trips. Kelly and myself have opted out of a raise next year. And oil, we were able to lock in at a real good oil price. This year, we actually got it for almost 90 cents lower than we're currently paying. And so we took a little money out of that. And so, just a little bit about the district itself before we get into the actual warrants. We continue working on our strategic plan. Strategic plan that was started in 2017, ends in 22. We're working on providing rigorous and diverse academics. We continue to create positive culture with cooperative communication, collaboration, and communication. We work on innovative instruction and curriculum, balancing extracurricular and academic offerings, and ensuring best instructional practices by recruiting, training, and evaluation. And so we continue to work on those. Those are obviously our focus and have been our focus from 2017. As I said, this year has certainly been interesting with COVID, opening schools, thinking about how we deliver education, how we do our business in this COVID world. I will say that it really has taken a united effort of our teachers, our support staff, our custodial staff, our bus drivers, our food service workers, everyone going hand in hand, our union, to make this work. Most school districts right now are in some sort of hybrid. We were able to go back and offer in-face education. We have 96% of our students return to us for in-face education. So we have over 400 students that we're serving with 120 staff members in a very supportive community. We've picked up a few new families who've had summer homes up here, who moved up here and made it a permanent residence. In the last week, we've picked up 5 new students. So since we've returned from vacation, we've picked up an additional 5 new students. 3, I believe, have moved to town, and 2 are summer people that, again, are coming up here. We are attracting folks because one reason I think of our reputation as a school district, but 2, because we're open and we're giving face-to-face learning. This year's budget is proposed at $13,047,744, which is a 2.88% increase from last year, or $365,538. The majority of this, as I mentioned, comes from non-discretionary increases. There's almost $300,000 worth of those increases in our budget between the teacher contract and the New Hampshire time at $244,000. As I mentioned, our population is down a little bit, but if you add in the remote and homeschool kids, you continue to be pretty constant and pretty steady, and our projection continues to look that way. We have 55 teachers right now in our Sunapee Teacher Association. Those 55 teachers hold over 79 different teaching certifications. 67% of those have a master's degree and above. We have 2.5 building administrators. We have 7 related service folks, and that's OT, PT, and speech. We have 15 certified, New Hampshire certified paraprofessionals. Our support staff made up of administrative assistants, food service, bus drivers, custodial. We have 4 administrative assistants, 4 part-time first food service people, 1 transportation director, 7 drivers, 1 director of custodial, and 7 custodians. The SAU has 5 full-time folks and a 0.2 financial support. The SAU makes up 2.93% of this year's budget. Our special education numbers, currently Sunapee has 14.3% of its population that's identified under special education. Just some comparisons, the state of New Hampshire is 12.8. The United States as a whole is 12.8. Sullivan County is 13.9. When we opened school in October 1st of this year, special ed population percentage was 12.8. And again, currently, as of today, it is 14.3. Food and free and reduced lunch eligibility, Sunapee right now is an average of 20% students that are eligible. There are 27% of students eligible at the elementary school and 17% here. The state average is 21. Some comparisons, Grantham's at 6, Kearsarge Middle High School is at 19, and Hopkinton is at 7. One of the things I think that Kelly hit on regarding the legislature, regarding retirement, is being pushed down to the local level. And unfortunately, the legislation, in legislation that goes back, as Kelly said, from 2011 or potentially beyond, has forced a lot of funding or cut back on funding for Medicaid, catastrophic aid, building aid, and pushed those costs back to the local district. And it's unfortunate because what that does is it really puts the taxpayer and the municipality, or the school district in this case, at somewhat odds. And folks look to the school for tax relief and look for places where we can lower that budget. And unfortunately, some of those things are out of our control, and I would be happy to speak to anybody at any time regarding where they could potentially go to Concord and who they could go to and have those conversations. One of the things you're going to hear me talk about a little bit in my report tonight is the funding plan, the funding committee that was put together by the governor. They have a report that came out. That report offers a way to help equalize education and paying for education. Sunapee would not do very well if that comes to fruition. That has to go through the legislature. The governor mentioned it in his inaugural speech the other day, trying to equalize education, and valuing education. And so I think it's just something we need to be aware of. If you go back to, remember, the donor town, receiver town, if folks were around back then, is very similar, or it looks like it could be very similar in nature to that sort of situation. So something I think folks need to take a look, keep an eye on. Yes, it's nice that we can be here, we can have these conversations. A lot of this stuff gets done down in Concord and gets pushed onto us. And so really, in a small state like New Hampshire, being vocal and being able to be present in Concord, which I try to do as a superintendent, and I know our board is actively involved with the School Board Association, but it does take the constituencies and the members of this community and the members of the state to really have those voices heard down in Concord. It's really important. Again, so leave this for 12. This budget represents projected spending and revenue received. The district is projected to receive $936,722 in revenue, which is down from last year's $1.24 million, which means we have a rising appropriation which we're asking to raise by taxes. So what we're asking for is $12,111,022. That will be raised locally, and that is an estimate of 38 cents. So I'm now going to go through the warrants. I'm sure you've all had an opportunity. I left this up. This is the warrant that was posted. We talked about during the bond. This is the actual, got a little screwy there, but this is the actual budget itself. You can see our budget here in our default budget. Our default budget, because we looked at our budget, again, not knowing where COVID was, we've taken so much out of our budget. The things that we have to leave in our budget, I can pull up the RSA for you and you can read that. But things that are contracted, special ed services, have to stay in. And so that because of that, our actual default budget is higher. What would come out of the default budget would be raises for any of our support staff, administrative assistants, SAU staff, custodian, food service, bus drivers. And there are some other things that are there. Again, copy of the default budget is on the back table. And so again, projected 38 cents tax impact. Article 5, you see if the district will vote to authorize. So in 2009, thank you, Kelly. In 2013, the legislative body, the school board, put an article on the table. The legislative body passed it in the vote in March to have a contingency fund. That contingency currently is at 2.5 of the net assessed property value. So it's roughly $250,000 in that contingency fund right now. Legislation, here's a positive thing, so it's good and bad, came this year and rewrote RSA 198.4B, Roman numeral 2, which will allow districts to now hold 5% of that net assessed property value. And so this warrant article, there's no money attached to it, but allows the school board to hold up to 5% of its net assessed property value. And there are, again, I should bring up the RSA in a minute, but it'll show you that there's a process for them to be able to go spend any of this contingency fund. There's a process of having a meeting, having a hearing, making sure it's audited every year, and the accounts are audited, so there are some safe holds in here. The board just can't go spend willy-nilly. And so the board is asking to, again, change the 2.5 that we have in place and up that to 5%. Article 6, this again goes to the technology. Again, COVID, not knowing what it's going to look like, we've taken things out of the budget and said perhaps if we needed it, we could dip into this fund. But we're saying we could add some more money into this fund, potentially at the end of this year out of our fund balance. One of the reasons to do that is our virtual service needs an upgrade over the next 2 years. That upgrade could be anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000. Having our virtual service this year allowed us, when we were remote last year, to give remote instruction. It allows us right now to be prepared to give remote instruction in case we had to go back out again. So we're asking again for some money coming out of fund balance to be placed in this account, and potentially we may have to dip into some of this depending on where we are coming out of COVID next year to help offset some of the things that we've taken out of the budget. Again, a 0% impact to the overall budget. Those are all our warrant articles. The deliberative session, February 1st, 7 p.m. Be there. It will be here. We will socially distance this room. We will live stream it. It is not live streamed to participate and ask questions. It's not a remote meeting. The meeting will be in person. We will be here. For folks that are uncomfortable being in a large room, we're going to be able to stream it into our classrooms. We have 10 classrooms here behind me. We'll actually stream it there. We'll put no more than 10 people in any classroom, so people who may not feel safe in a large setting can absolutely come and sit in a small classroom. You would have to come in to ask questions so that you were heard by the legislative body at that time, and your vote will be taken if you're on premises. The same setup will be for the town, for the school, will be for the town on their meeting to follow on the 2nd. Again, I talked about the elementary school Zoom meetings that are coming up. Keep an eye on our website, and the vote in March. And I'll just give you quickly, here's the language for the default budget. And again, it talks about what has to stay in, what has to come out, and the default budget is set by the school board. And I'll leave that there so folks can read that thoroughly if they wish to. And this is the contingency fund, here in the 198.4B, and they're very specific. This sort of outlines the warrant here, and again, talks about what the responsibilities are. This is not anything to do with us specifically, this doesn't. The reporting period, how we spend it, how we authorize it. So I will take questions regarding the budget at this time if folks have them. Mr. Whitehouse.
At your revenue page, you said 2021 has 1,246,000 revenue, but the year's not over yet, correct? So you haven't calculated for tuition, general education, preschool, you haven't calculated for catastrophic aid for 2021 yet. You got an estimate, but you don't have actual numbers, right?
Correct.
So that number's gonna go up.
We would assume so, yes.
Okay, so, and you got $1,542,000 in revenue for 2020.
Yep.
2018 and 19, this is on the budget committee. They're about the same, $1,500,000, $1,450,000, depends on the year. They're about $1.5 million. So you've got a $936,000 budget here, which is about a $600,000 shortfall in revenues, right? You had 33 kids not enrolled the year before. Estimate. You had 33 kids not enrolled, right?
29 kids that were in school. We get our adequacy for our 18 kids.
Say 7% in production enrollment. You got $600,000 in reduction in revenues. So my question is pretty simple. Seems like you're missing some money and you're missing some enrollment. What did you do in payment streams to try to make up for that shortfall in revenue that you're forecasting? $600,000. With the shortfall, with the reduction in enrollment.
Well, because we don't know if we have a shortfall, because that's an estimate.
Did you cut any staff to make up for these shortfalls? Did you cut anything? And you're asking for $550,000, which was not mentioned yet, by the way. In increased taxes, $550,000 is what you're asking for. District assessment, right?
Chris, I'm not sure I'm trying to follow that.
Excuse me.
I'm asking.
You're asking a question, he's gonna answer it, that means you stop talking and let him finish.
He asked me a question. Why don't you just let him ask me a question?
Watch yourself, sir.
You watch yourself, sir. I'm asking a question.
Interesting.
So, you got $550,000 in the district assessment on the revenue. That's the increase in taxation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So.
They're all estimates.
So first question is, you got $600,000 shortfall in revenues. Estimate.
Possible.
So possibly, did you possibly lay anybody off for that? Were you possibly not doing anything?
Well, possibly, you just said that we projected, you went back because you're on the budget committee, you know that we underestimate our revenue intentionally, as not to